Welcome back to the Clemson Pawcast. Just when Jimbo Fisher thought he had the worst play call of the weekend, Mike Norvell said, "Hold my beer." Todd Bates released a new acronym about Oklahoma: Offensive Ugly. Clemson is 6-0, and life is good. Welcome back to the Clemson Pawcast, everyone. I'm your host, Nick, joined tonight by Ben and Jarrett. Fellas, good to see you back. Clemson's undefeated, went up to Boston College, got that win. Looked a little dicey in the first half. Didn't think we were going to lose it all, but a little bit of an uglier start than I think any of us were hoping for coming off that big NC State win. Clemson got the 31-3 victory. I think when you look across all four quarters, there's a lot of good to take away from this game. Still some building block areas for the team to work on, but pretty happy with the win overall. How about y'all?
Yeah, I'd say so, especially to see the team turn it around in the second half and respond. We saw some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball at halftime and saw guys come out and play better. And given the two games prior to that, the win against Wake Forest and Winston-Salem in overtime, and then followed that up by the tough matchup against NC State, that combined with Ella Versailles and everything going on there, a lot of emotions for this team. And so, we mentioned it last episode that this could potentially be a trap game. And, like you, Tully, you never felt that this game was ever in jeopardy, especially seeing as good as the defense was playing. But it's not surprising to see them come out a little sluggish. I think for me, the big takeaway is that they were able to stick in there and really turn around with the second half, put some points up on the board and pull away.
I agree. I didn't, I've only been following Clemson football since maybe like 2008, 2007, maybe, but I can still remember what a trap game was really like. And there might be some people listening to this that, are just used to 10-win seasons, 9-win seasons, 15-win seasons. And, to be able to have game day at Death Valley, top 10 matchup, to show out like they did against NC State, even though they gave up a little garbage score, and then to go up on the road in the cold in Boston and take down Boston College when they were all hyped up for the red bandana game. I think it's just another reminder that, other than last year's weirdness, like Dabo just has a great hold on his program and on the team. And this is where we are pretty much every year. Middle of the season is like bumps and bruises, but things are slowly starting to kind of smooth out. So I'm excited to see what the back half of the season looks like.
Yeah, and I think we saw Clemson get respect in the polls, even though, we had a sluggish start and, pulled away to a 28-point win by jumping Michigan up to number 4, who beat a fairly decent Indiana team on the road at 9 a.m. By 21 points, one less than the spread, I might add. And I told everybody in this last episode to take Indiana plus 22. If you listen to me, you're welcome. Stay tuned for more insider knowledge on some good bets at the end of this show. But yeah, I mean, again, we talked a little bit last episode about Clemson not getting respect. I totally don't think that's the case. You saw it in how we started number 4 this year. You see it when we flipped with Michigan after this past weekend. So I think just everything, leading up to this game, again, it's not surprising. There was a bit sluggish start. I'm just glad to see that the team eventually turned it on and started making some plays. And it wasn't even close.
I think, the college football media, the, national college football, Illuminati, you want to call it that, are starting to figure out what we have, which is like Clemson had a good defense coming into this year, stacked team. Yes, the team's been injured, but they've been able to weather the toughest games. But I think we were pointing to, look, if the right things break for DJ, last year there were a lot of extenuating circumstances to his play that led to, snowballed within the team. There were a lot of things setting up to be better for this year, for DJ to have a better season. Those things have come true. I think we kind of first saw this to some extent, the things that were going to be better for DJ. But I think overall, the team is starting to get that national respect. And you're starting to see that just obviously moving up to number 4 in the AP poll. I forget where we were in the coaches guys.
We were still at number 5.
Yeah, still at number 5. Coaches don't watch these games, whatever. So yeah, starting to get that respect. And then I think also just in the bowl projections from, writers out there, that kind of thing. So anyway, it really doesn't matter. We talked about it last time with Cody, a belabored point I might add last week, that it really doesn't matter at this point. A lot of the rest of the top 10 is going to play one another. Clemson will have its chances to probably get at least one more ranked matchup with Notre Dame, assuming we and they take care of business the next 2 games. So, plenty to still pat on our own resume and win the ACC. I think we're in the playoff.
Well, I think it just goes to prove it's a false narrative that Clemson is not getting respect as a program these days, because I totally think they are. Now, again, we have to take that a little bit with a grain of salt, because the college football landscape and how teams are performing this year is vastly different than we've seen in years past, where even the top teams, the Georgias, the Alabamas, are struggling to win games. So, if you have 3 or 4 teams that are just killing everybody, then the Clemson looks like a far distant 5th or 6th, right? But the fact that, we have some struggles and these other teams have some struggles too, it looks like, that top tier teams are much closer, kind of in their
together, right?
Yeah, they're a lot closer together as far as, talent and ability and the potential to win in the playoffs than we've seen in years past. So, when we look back at our games so far this year, you look at the scores. I mean, you think back to this time last year, you would take this without, without a doubt, in a heartbeat. And so we really have to look into the things that the circumstances around this team. Again, I talked about Ella Bersay, the odd, short week leading up to Furman, all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball, which, by the way, we haven't been talking about these defensive backs screwing up, these young defensive backs here recently in games, which is a huge sign moving forward for the rest of the season. So I think sitting here at 6-0, halfway through the regular season schedule, if you're a Tiger fan, you have to be pretty happy.
I mean, we'll get into kind of the flow of the BC game and reasons, I think, Ben, why these opposing OCs have not been able to just pick at the scab with Clemson. Can't hit the deep ball on these guys if your quarterback's running for his life, right? And Phil Dracovic definitely was. Devin Leary definitely was in the second half of that NC State game. Jordan Travis, he's going to be in for some of that this coming weekend too. I think FSU's O-line is a little bit banged up. They've been problematic for about a decade now down there, since the 2013 team turned over. So anyway, I mean, why don't we dig into this BC game? And I think we'll probably circle back to more of the national landscape, because this coming weekend slate is looking amazing across the board for college football. I want to kind of poll both of you guys. Jarrett, we haven't had you on the show in a couple of weeks. See where we're at just on the national contenders for the playoff, and who we'd like to face, all of that. But first, let's go with BC.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Jarrett.
Oh, yeah. So 31-3, like you said, you see the team definitely grow up in some spots. And then there's also, still some head scratching moments. I think where we've seen growing up is probably, and even Wes Goodwin said it himself, like he's getting first year coach, like he's just getting used to literally just the schedule and to being more kind of demanding from his guys and trying to get the most out of his guys without just being, their friend. Like you can be more of the players' friends when you're kind of the assistant coach and not having to be the bad cop all the time. So I think I liked what I saw out of the front seven. I mean, obviously we have incredibly talented people, and let's not forget that like we're probably going to have almost everyone healthy, or at least probably 10 of the 11 starters that we thought we were going to have healthy and or at least getting good playing time against FSU. So yeah, against BC, definitely saw some improvement there. I think that there was just like a lot of havoc that that Dracovic was dealing with, and there was really only a couple of plays that really kind of dinked and dunked, down on us. I haven't seen a ton of screen, headaches like we have seen in the past. I haven't seen a ton of corners missing tackles. That's possibly because we haven't seen as much of Fred Davis. And, on offense, I think that the wide receivers still have not a ways to go, but they still need to work to take that next step. I think that they're making good catches. There's some contested balls. Ngata, I think, had actual more than 1 foot of separation for the first time in 4 years on a catch for a touchdown. And it was beautiful to see. I mean, they're all talented. They just need to squeeze the ball and catch it. So yeah, I liked what I saw. And if you guys remember all the other years prior, it's like, it feels like, yeah, we're kind of high expectations in the beginning. We're not quite hitting on all cylinders. And then it's really just kind of like an old tractor that kind of like rumble, rumble, rumble for a little bit. And then it finally slowly starts humming into a rhythm.
Yeah, I really think there's 3 areas across this football team that we need to really focus on and seeing some improvement moving forward here over the second half of the season. One is with the wide receivers, as you were talking about, that being more physical, going up and getting the ball and winning more of those 50-50 balls. I think the offensive line really still needs to continue to improve their fundamentals and techniques. Blake Miller and Marcus Tate were a weak spot in this game. And then also the secondary needs to continue to improve because, Jerkovich is a good quarterback. Yes, we were getting pressure on him. Zay Flowers is a potential first round draft pick at wide receiver. And he had 8 catches for, 75 yards in this game. So Clemson comes up to face a team that has more than 2 really capable wide receivers. Are we able to, contain them, right? When you're probably in this game putting more focus on Zay Flowers and putting your best guy on him. When we go up against teams that have 2-3 threats, yes, we have the great defensive line to get pressure, but the secondary is still going to need to, cover those guys for at least some period of time. So you got to take again this game with let's not look at this week and the great defensive performance and think that we're going to get all these guys back and ultimately go ahead and just hold teams to 0 for the rest of the season. There is some improvement to be done, but the fact that these guys in the secondary are getting so much experience this early in the season, when we do get these upperclassmen back, we can rest assured a little bit that if they do go down again for whatever reason, that we're going to be in a lot better shape than we would have been had these young guys not gotten so much playing time here early on.
Agreed.
I mean, we've seen this team face an offense with 2 very capable wide receiving threats. It was Wake Forest. And yes, it was the Nate Wiggins, Toriano Pride show without Makuba. It was not pretty, not great back there. Will Sheridan Jones coming back helps out. Will some of these other guys getting a little bit more game experience help? I think it will by the time we face somebody like an Ohio State down the stretch, maybe even a Georgia, where they throw in the wrinkle of a couple of really awesome tight ends. But yeah, I think this defense, Wes Goodwin and company, have their work cut out for them. I think it's going to have to be schematic and not just expecting these guys to elevate play and develop, in the next 6 to 7, 8 weeks before that matchup could happen. It's going to have to be, you give up some things elsewhere. You kind of move guys around and you set up your formations to not let that burn you. So in any event, I think when we look at, I want to maybe take it back to a tale of 2 halves a little bit from the offensive end. We did see some of that wide receiver, and I don't know what it is, Jarrett, to be honest. Like, is it lack of focus? Is it these guys need to work on physicality, jump balls, 50-50 balls, like whatever, boxing out basically to grab pull down catches? But it certainly seemed like it was just drive killing drops or drive killing, like not going up and getting the ball in these receptions. That was slowing the offense down in the first half. I thought DJ was doing great for his part. He had 1 mistake with the interception in this game. But for the most part, he was pretty crisp, pretty accurate, which again, like, is crazy to think about when what we were talking about with DJ coming out of last year, like footwork, lack of accuracy, lack of precision,
all of it.
All that seems pretty good to me right now. I'm no quarterback doctor, not examining his footwork, that kind of thing, but sure seems like he's got poise, stepping up in the pocket the right way, moving around as he needs to. I thought Streeter called a good game. I never felt like there was that, like, oh gosh, we're just trying to, mix in this type of play too much here. I harken back to the NC State game with just trying to do design runs from DJ. Felt like we wore that one out a little bit. I do think just from the offensive play calling standpoint, one thing you look at with the targets in this game, they were clearly trying to work out the receivers in this one. Not very many attempts to the tight ends. You might look at that and criticize Streeter. I don't do that at all. I think this is clearly, looking to develop those wide receivers. they sure needed it when you watch that first half. But then you started the second half, deep ball to Ngata. I think they were getting Randall going. Who else? I mean, Antonio Williams definitely had a great second half.
Davis Allen had a great catch. We had to kind of go up down the sideline and get the ball as DJ was scrambling.
Bo Collins had a good second half.
Yeah, somebody got onto him at halftime, and he started fighting for some balls and making some catches. Well, again, talking about Bo, and talking about these wide receivers, I think a lot of it is the physicality. We're just not seeing that. Bo ran out of bounds by himself. Early on in the first quarter, when he could have gotten at least 10 more yards on a pass down the field.
Guys,
there.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought Tyler Grisham was like a wide receiver at Clemson who like took a bunch of hits, like pretty physical guy, like from wide receiver. Like, doesn't mean he's not coaching them up to try to be that, or I don't know if you are something, you can coach it. No clue here. Not a coach, not a wide receiver coach. But just an observation.
Yeah, well, and it's still the wide receiver blocking too is an issue. Like EJ Williams is gonna get somebody killed if he doesn't put more effort into his blocking on the edge there. And I think I saw it one time too with Bo Collins. Bo has all the talent there. He just needs to kind of put it all together, and we need to again take it a little bit easy on him because it is a second season, but we are 6 games into that second season and we're dealing with some of the same issues. There was that one drop in the end zone, another drop down the sideline. So again, I think it's just that physicality that we're talking about here. And this Adam Randall continues to come along a little bit more. He gets some more reps and some more playing time. That's a kid that we could slowly start seeing more of and could start threatening Bo's playing time a little bit there. So we'll see how that plays out. The competition I think is going to be good to help elevate the play of all of these folks. I mean, we've already seen Antonio Williams and what he's done and come in and kind of surpassing Brandon Spector on the depth chart. But I think just having these young guys that look incredibly capable, I think is going to push the rest of this team. And hopefully you just start seeing improvement week after week, but we've got to stop with these drops. We really do, because they are drive killers. I mean, there's other things wrong with the offense. Run blocking is an issue. Some of the play calling, which Streeter admitted on second down and not putting themselves or second and long, not putting them in good position on third down, is certainly an issue. But I will say overall, I'm pretty happy with the play calling. I see a lot more creativity this year. I see a lot more offensive linemen pulling, which is a good sign because we were actually very basic last year because you couldn't trust those guys. So at least it shows me that they can trust these guys this year. And maybe it's just more mental mistakes and less so physical ability. And if these guys can really start to gel and put it together, this could really open up this offense. But, you always used to hear, Dabo say like last year, whenever the offense is struggling, it's like, we're one player away or we're one mistake away from really breaking you open. And you can really see that on this offense. You really can, especially going back and watching the game after the fact. But still, that's an excuse, right? Until you actually see them put it all together.
I've been seeing more pre-snap motion this year. And that was something we were like yelling about last year with Tony Elliott. Begging for it, and we got the athletes, so it is nice to see that.
Yeah, I wonder if some of the drops are just from them being maybe traumatized all year last year, that anything DJ throws is going to be super unpredictable, and they're still just kind of regaining that trust. You would think that with practice in the summer and all that stuff, that there's some better chemistry there, because otherwise, like, balls are hitting hands and they're just not squeezing them in. So. It's head scratching. Speaking of wrinkles too, I mean, I've seen a lot of new wrinkles. I'm not an offensive mastermind or anything like that, but I can just tell when we're running really unique plays, and a lot of it's like, it feels sometimes that Antonio Williams is like the key to opening up this offense to what Bama was doing, the last couple of years, when they were doing their title run. Not that there's not a title run year for Bama, but I think with Devontae Adams, or whoever the guy that just like won the Blitnikoff over there, I'm blanking on his name.
Smith, Devontae Smith.
Devontae Smith.
Devontae Adams plays for the Raiders and played at Fresno State with Derek Carr.
Yeah. My bad. But just like all kinds of different wrinkles with Antonio Williams that I'm starting to see, and with other receivers and the tight ends in motion, and then you've got two tight ends on the same side. I don't know what that's called, but I saw some positive plays come out of that formation. And then what happened live was we saw Cade come in for a drive. It looked like they were just turning over the rest of the game to be the Cade show after we were up, by like 3 scores. And I really did think that they were just going to let him run the rest of the game. And he went in and he ran 2 plays, didn't really get anywhere. And then DJ came in to like finish that drive with an incomplete pass, and then they punted. And I remember texting everyone and just being like, "Hey, they either tried to give it to Cade and immediately regretted that decision, which I don't know that is likely, or they're just trying out some new wildcat stuff or some backup stuff to script into the playbook, which would be, more likely." And I don't know, it just felt so abrupt to like pull him after 2 of his 3 downs. And I think after the game, Streeter and then we're talking about how like that was kind of their plan, was to just again, wrinkles. They're trying to build in more and more options into this offense. And I think what Elliott did was just wait until the end of the season. And if you haven't practiced these plays for, 10 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're trying to play them in like the highest pressure situations against defenses that are, top in the country, it's really tough to pull them off. So some of these drops, some of these like incomplete plays, some of these things that don't go anywhere, I want to believe are just us like shaking out some of these wrinkles in the playbook, because we know we can, and we don't have to, try to win the game on every drive like we have in the past.
Yeah,
and I do think, specifically in this game, we all saw how successful we were throwing to the wide receivers against NC State, the tight ends against NC State. You kind of go into this game, listen, Dabo and the coaching staff knows who this BC team is. They have a good feel for the game and knows the thing that this Clemson offense needs to work on. So I can totally see them kind of putting that tight end portion of the playbook in their back pocket, really focus on them blocking and really getting the ball to the other wide receivers to get some type of momentum and chemistry going on with them. And again, the game was never really in question. You never felt like, it was pretty obvious BC was going to have a hard time moving the ball. So it was never in danger of being a loss. And then you saw that start to, again, take footing in the second half as the guys started catching up, making tough receptions. And Gata, like you mentioned earlier on, finally got some separation there into the end zone, had a good throw and catch there from DJ. So just sticking with that. And again, seeing the improvements, seeing some adjustments at halftime, or at least getting these guys' attention and let them know, listen, this is Boston College and you had 2 big wins, but we have playoff aspirations. Like, you can't take games off, right? Because, anybody could beat you at any given time. We've seen that throughout college football this year. And if you end up with, 5 undefeated teams, you got to show that you're one of the best 4. So these games do count.
One thing I want to point out about BC, and then I want to talk about kind of the flow in the second half. They came to play. I mean, they were physical from the start, and I think that surprised this offense, and definitely the receivers. We talked about that a little bit, but they were hitting, and a lot of these guys are backups. Like they were missing guys with injury, not a lot of experience. Like I would have expected I guess this is probably year 3. This is the 3rd full year of Jeff Hafley as their head coach. He came over from Ohio State. He's like a defensive, wonderkind kind of young coach, a lot of defensive ideas. They really haven't had an impressive defense this year. And, you're 3 years in, at least some of these guys on the field are your recruits. I think he was going to be a guy that, might've gotten them to like 8, 9 wins, 10 wins, and he would have gotten hired away. Don't know if that's going to happen or when that's going to happen for them, but they did show up to play. He did have them motivated. Maybe it was a red bandana game. Maybe it was, everyone gives Clemson a hard game because we're their Super Bowl in the year. Like it was something, but I want to call out, they brought the intensity from the start, which was cool to see. Because I don't know how much, we always talk about iron strengthening iron. Like, I don't know the rest of the way how much of that we're going to get from our opponents. Probably Notre Dame. That might be it. So that's good. And then I think the second half really eventually got to the point where this did feel like the game was fairly in hand. And it did feel like that thing we've been hoping for, which is the ability to get more guys in, like work the depth, get more guys on the field. I think the coaching staff went a different direction here. And there was some controversy about that within the game where they decided to keep the starters on the field and, keep pushing the ball. This was only one series where they went down and scored the touchdown at the end. But yeah, I mean, like, why not do that? And, Jeff Hapley, if you have an issue, call your defense, call the defense the right way to stop that. You guys did a decent job stopping Clemson throughout the game.
Yeah, we're not there to just give up, we have to develop players. We have playoff and national championship aspirations. And when your team's not playing well, you got to keep them in and take advantage of this, game time, real live
against live action
time,
right,
to get your guys the necessary reps, especially when they've had the momentum in the second half, to keep their confidence up going on the road for a second road game in a row to Florida State next weekend. So,
and style points matter. I mean,
yeah. So I'm tired of these football coaches, especially these Division I coaches in the conference, like in your conference, guys whining about the perception of running up the score. It was 31-3 was the final score. Jesus. So I mean,
well, at that point, it was
like, was it ever confirmed that Hafley was actually
no.
whining about it? Or was it speculation, like on the broadcast?
Yeah, I think it was Todd Blackledge was the most chafed by it. And I don't know. I don't necessarily, they were doing some lip reading, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, the thing that what that tells me and kind of what I've seen this season is like we have a luxury that we did not have last year, and then we haven't had in some other years even recently, where it's like we can kind of have the game in control and work out kinks and try new things and like build rhythm and build depth without feeling like the game is going to get out of hand if we don't. I feel like last year, again, different play caller, but it felt like every drive we had to go out there, and if we didn't move the ball consistently and play our best plays and do our best, we were not going to score, and then we were going to get behind, and then because it was just like a coin toss whether we would not be able to finish the drive anyways. So it felt like we didn't have the ability to kind of step back and just let things play out. And Jeff Hapley's not the only former defensive mastermind that's gone on to be a head coach that is not performed to what people have expected of them, although we might get into that later.
Okay, you gotta leave BV alone. He's had half his team left to follow Lincoln Riley.
Mark Stoops, right? Did I hear you talk about Mark Stoops?
Yeah.
Kentucky.
Will Muschamp
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, in this one, pretty even it was actually very even. It was 31 passes, 32 rushes, balanced offense. We haven't talked too much about the running backs in this one. Has Clemson had a 100-yard rusher in our Power 5 matchups? I don't know that we have yet.
I mean, I think Shipley's only got like 400 something yards for the year.
Right. So we've not seen a dominant rushing performance yet for Clemson. And
well, it's not necessarily because of the rushers. Again, I think it's because of the offensive line. When the D line QT pointed this out, when D lines are pulling stunts, the switching off of assignments is not going very smoothly across this defensive line or offensive line, and that's one area where the youth in Blake Miller and Marcus Tate. Even though this is Tate's second year in the program and he did start the first game of the year last year, that playing time quickly diminished after the Georgia game. So these young guys are still going to have to come along. And as they have more time to gel this year, I do expect, or at least I hope for improvement. I do still struggle with why we're not able to blow opposing defensive lines off the ball, at least certain ones. I understand against NC State, but against Boston College, I really would have expected better. Now, going into next week against Florida State, if we're not able to, if we don't put a 100-yard rusher up on them, I'm going to be extremely concerned unless, we have two guys with like 90 between Moffa and Shipley. But that's a team we should certainly be able to run on without without an issue and without any struggle. So that's certainly an area to keep an eye on, because as we get closer to the playoffs and we start playing better and better teams, once we get in the ACC championship game and then into a potential playoff berth, you're going to need to have that balanced attack, because you don't have Deshaun Watson out there and some stud wide receivers that are just going to win the game for you, right? You've got this offensive line, you've got DJ, you've got a couple really good running backs, and you've got potential at the wide receiver position. So I think we need to be much more balanced across this entire offense to be successful moving forward into the playoffs this year. Potential.
Yeah, and it sounds like the play calling is balanced, like what Tully just said, but the results from the plays are not balanced. You know,
but
like
you see, it makes a world of difference when the wide receivers are just catching the damn ball there in the second half, right? All of a sudden we start scoring.
Yeah, and then what does that say too? Like you don't want to be one dimensional when we get into the playoffs if you can't be consistent in the run. And like imagine the second half of the game if the wide receivers still didn't really catch like they did in the first half. I mean, is this like a 17-3 head scratching kind of game?
Yeah, or if that combined with BC having a better field goal kicker.
Yeah, I mean, DJ's our second leading rusher. Shipley has 446, DJ has 311, and Maffa's at 162.
Well, he led in this game. I mean, he had twice as many rushing yards, almost as we had, more than twice as many as Shipley, and almost twice as many as Maffa. Had a larger average. Now, obviously, that 40-yard run there. Which, did you see DJ's quotes about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he's thinking pay dirt, but then he realized no chance.
He said reality set in. Good for him. I love that kind of self-criticism and self-deprecating humor there from him. It really just shows you where his head's at this year. And, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think the pass protection has been a lot better this year. Him being able to stay on his feet, not feeling that pressure, has allowed him to go through his progressions in check downs, which we've seen him do to resounding success this year. So again, I think part of it is with the pass protection on the offensive line, which it has been pretty good. Again, Blake Miller is getting beat a good fair amount, but I think, again, a combination of that and just GJ's improvement overall, which has been nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, just even going back to the team jockeying for position in a potential playoff matchup, like you look back at 2016, everyone remembers Mike Williams, remember Jordan Leggett. Wayne Gallman got some key yards on that final play, and he was critical in that Alabama game. Like, I think he ran for like 3.5 yards per carry. Nothing crazy, but enough to keep you
towards the end of the game when he was really just wearing them down and like just kept running so physical, hitting the hole hard.
Wasn't that the play where it was like a bubble screen to Scott and then he tossed it to Gallman, who was kind of rotating out almost like on a wheel, and just like stopped like at the two yards of progress and then just kept pushing, another 5 or 6 yards to get the first down, something like that.
And every damn yard on that drive mattered, as we found out. So anyway, yes, like even in years when we're stacked at receiver in the passing game, like you got to be multiple. So,
and I actually, after watching this game, I do like Maffa more running up the middle than I like Shipley, especially if the offensive line is going to be struggling to get a push and open some holes like this. I mean, Shipley obviously is great. His toughness, his speed, getting him out on the edge and what he can do in the passing game and everything. But Maffa just hits that hole so hard. He's a different type of physical back. They're both physical, but Maffa just has that extra punch that I don't think that Will necessarily has right now. One other thing I want to go back to, and continuing to praise DJ here. One thing that is just night and day difference from last year is he had 2 screen passes in this game to Antonio Williams, where he put the ball out in front of him to keep him moving forward once he caught the ball. And they both turned into 2 pretty good gains. One there I believe on the first drive of the game, and then another one in the second half. So seen of a lot of improvement there. I think that just speaks to his confidence and his mechanics being a little bit better. But yeah, that's, again, a lot of bright spots there.
Cool. Pretty good offensive performance overall from Clemson in this game. Hostile environment, shaky first half, finished the job in the second half. by way of transitioning over, want to talk a little bit about special teams in this one. Looks like Will Taylor, he had some struggles in this game. 2 fumbles. Clemson recovered both of them, but really shaky, which is difficult. I mean, I think we're all hoping to have Will Taylor back there. Number one, like really interested in his explosiveness. But I would love to have, a specialist in that role, like a guy that can be dedicated to that, maybe keep some like Antonio Williams out of, a pretty physical play, like a punt return. But it looks like Williams is going to be potentially splitting punt return duties, possibly taking that over. He's explosive. Would love to get, more yards, better field position, potentially break one for touchdowns and points. But I think he's just so critical to the offense as we've talked about. I'd almost rather not put him in that position.
Yeah, I think, in years past, we've had so much confidence in this offense's ability just to go down and have their way with the opposing defense and go down and score, that the philosophy was just to safely field the punt, take the ball, and go from there. And, last season, obviously that was not the case. And this season, I still don't think this offense is there yet. So I think we do need more out of the return game. And another thing that Quacking Tiger pointed out as well is, we kind of strayed away from that move that Dabo made after that one year where we just couldn't stop a kick return to save our lives, where we started putting more starters on the special teams. Now we're back to some like walk-ons or something like that. And it's just not getting the same results that we would hope we have. And to speak to Will Taylor, I just don't think he has the burst in the quickness that he had last year after coming off that ACL injury.
And it's his first year, really playing football, right? Did he really play in high school or?
Will? Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know how many punts he was fielding.
But yeah, that's what I meant. Like, I don't know how many punts he was fielding. So right. Yeah, it's not good. I'm back to whenever I see a punt go to us, I hold my breath and, climb under the table if it's bad.
It looked pretty bad. And this one didn't want to take it to the kicking game. Unfortunately, BT Potter missed another field goal. I think this one was on him. I think he just yanked it a little bit. Still made another one at 35 yards, 4 for 4 on extra points. BT's a legend. He'll figure this out. He's allowed to miss one here and there. But it wasn't a very long kick either, was it, guys? I think it was like 42 or something.
40 something. I think that was the one that there was a bit of a high snap that Drew Sweeney brought down. But yeah, I mean, it was close. It was on TV. It looked like it was through. But the camera angle was a little bit to the left and he missed it to the left. So we couldn't really see the straight on shot of that.
Yeah,
I have all the confidence in the world.
Of course, me too. I mean, the 2 that he's missed have been in the 40 to 49 range, but he's 4 for 4 in 30 to 39, and he's 1 of 1 and 50 plus. And like, we know, I mean, if you looked at, I think in 2019, like he would make ones within like 20 yards and then miss everything except 50 plus. So it's like, he's really developed that kind of mid game, and he's always had a cannon for a leg. So we're grateful that he's here for his 22nd year.
Nice. Punting, a little bit of an adventure once again. Decent average on 7 punts, about 42 yards for Aiden Swanson. This was a weird situation where they ran into him, and because he had done like a rugby style punt, they were going to call the flag, and it's like maybe that's a rule, but what can you? I mean, we might as well just go mob whatever punter then who leaves like the tackle box. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah, I saw that happen. I saw them run into him. I saw the flag go down, and I was like, sweet, I'm going to the bathroom real quick. And I came back and they had the ball.
Yeah. So Ben, I remember
what was briefly explained to us very hastily.
Outside the box. Yeah. He was outside.
Yeah. They're like, when you leave the hashes, you can get crushed.
All right. Well, if it's a rule, it's a rule.
Yeah.
I guess you could still get a roughing the kicker in that situation, but not a running into the kicker.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Because it was just a running into the kicker. Like, I don't think it was a roughing the kicker penalty based on what I saw. All
right, then we should run into their punters outside the box. That's the strategy moving forward.
Put Woodaz on them.
I don't think it helps after the ball's already away. Then you just have one less blocker.
That's fair.
Well, I guess they're tied up down there anyways.
Guys, why don't we move it over to the defense? I was really hoping for the shutout here. BC kicked their field goal in the first half, so that was kind of put to bed early, but shutout in the second half was amazing from this defense. I think coming into the game, we were excited to get Makuba back in his rightful safety position. He did slot in a little bit at corner, guys, and I think we saw there was at least one play where Zay Flowers got loose, I think for like 15, 16 yards. Maybe even longer than that, where Makuba ended up being in coverage and just got burned on that one. Zay Flowers, he's a handful, but I think Clemson did a really good job, at least absorbing 75 yards on 8 catches from Zay Flowers, not really letting him get in the end zone, obviously. But yeah, I thought, the game plan was sound. Just get after Jurkovec early and often. And really, they had no running game to speak of in this one. Just not very effective rushing the ball. Second week in a row, we stymied Wake, stymied NC State. We'll probably pull up some rushing stats here because Clemson has a really impressive track record thus far. But across the board, I thought, Clemson definitely did a good job making them one-dimensional and honestly zero-dimensional because Jurkovec could not get much going through the air either.
I just drool over this front seven, like especially when all these guys are healthy. I mean, to have Xavier Thomas win the leather helmet and ACC Defensive Lineman of the Week after playing 6 freaking snaps. Wow.
And getting 2 sacks.
I know. I thought he was out there for so much more than that because of all the havoc he was making. Man, just great to see that kid back on the field. And again, you're starting to see these guys come back from injury. We're going to have this week against Florida State, essentially all of our, top 8 defensive linemen playing for the first time in like freaking forever. And so that's a breath of fresh air. Again, it's going to help the secondary continue for us to allow us to be patient with them as they continue to come along. And even we're getting secondary guys back, hopefully Sharon Jones, Malcolm Green. And we can get Makuba back in his natural position at safety. And then the linebacking core they've just been monsters all year between Trotter, Simpson, and Barrett Carter. So I think that the main key to this team's potential success this year is going to rest on the shoulders on the defense, because I think the ceiling for the offense is only so high. But I do think if this defense is in 90% health, heading into the ACC championship game and into the playoffs, then I think even just a marginal improvement across the offensive line and at the wide receiver position can lead to a deep run, especially considering how we're seeing, what we're seeing as the weaknesses amongst the other top teams in college football this year.
Definitely agree. I think it's interesting, early in the season, people were talking about who's going to have the better season, whether it's going to be Randall and Williams and or Pride and Lucas. And I just like to touch on that again, where it definitely feels like Antonio Williams is having a fantastic season. Randall's kind of slowly putting his mark in there. And at first, it seemed like Pride and Lucas were totally just like not ready at all. But it seems like they've really started to trust Pride to kind of hold down, that one corner spot. And, I just respect that they're figuring out who their guys are and not worrying about who's the most tenured guy. It's kind of who's going to go out there and who's going to block, who's going to tackle. And, if you're 18 years old or 22 years old, like it doesn't matter. I'm just a little concerned on if there's going to be any limitation on Makuba because of that arm brace that only extends a certain amount. And obviously, I've had some banged up injuries, and it's like if you really try to avoid those spots when you're in physical contact again. And I think Florida State's got like a 6'7" receiver transfer from like Arizona State. I mean, guy's like huge, but apparently, has had some issues with drops. So, can we all play disciplined up front and pressure the quarterback and kind of see similar results and lock down the back end and lock down that giant receiver? take what we did in BC and apply it to FSU? Like, I think so, especially with a more healthy front seven.
I think they're going to give you, I haven't watched a ton of FSU, but I think they're going to give you somewhere between Wake and what NC State gave you. So bit more physical wide receivers, bit more athletic talent. But Jordan Travis, I mean, he's also an experienced, capable quarterback that can run the football. So I don't know. I guess like Jarrett, maybe they don't have a Zay Flowers, but I think they have sort of like they have really capable, like more physical receivers that can challenge us in different ways. I think it's gonna be a good test for our young secondary this weekend. But like you said, like they cannot run the ball for anything. So if we make them really one-dimensional, what's that going to mean for the scheme? I could see the defensive line getting home early and often in this one, and not even really seeing our cornerbacks get tested too much. I think that could play out.
Well, they may not be able to run the ball with their running backs and their offensive line, but with Jordan Travis, that's going to be we haven't seen the likes of him this year with either anybody we played, definitely Wake Forest or NC State. So that is going to stress this defense. Clemson has historically had some issues with running quarterbacks. I think this is a game where Barrett Carter as a spy on Travis could make a big impact. And, with this defensive line, you can be getting that pass rush, but you also have to be able to maintain containment against a guy like that. So he is a guy that can cause some chaos. I don't think this is a slam dunk by any means, but to have everybody start to come back healthy, it's certainly going to be a huge boost to this defense. So I'm not exactly sure where I'm at now on a predicted score of how much I think they're going to be able to score. I do believe strongly in this defense. I think it's going to be on the lower side, but I do think there are some wrinkles in there that they could do with Travis and their physical wide receivers that could cause this defense some problems.
So my question right now is to you two: would you rather the FSU game start and us come out and play very aggressive, knowing that their offensive line is kind of banged up and then maybe their running backs are banged up? Would you want us to play really aggressive up front and try to just kill Travis? Or do you want to play a little more kind of, slower pace just to kind of make sure nothing gets burned with a scramble or with a screen pass and any dinking and dunking? Like, what's your thoughts?
Well, Wes Goodwin is the kind of savant when it comes to that, so we'll leave it up to him. But what you did see in this BC game is he continued to dial up the pressure, leaving those young secondary guys kind of in one-on-one situations. And that's the bread and butter of this defense. That's what it was under Brent Venables. And I like to see them staying with the same philosophy here, even with some weaknesses in the secondary, just because you need to utilize that talent that you have across that front seven. So I think early on, you're going to see some pressure that you're used to seeing from Clemson. If things start to kind of go awry and Jordan Travis does start to break off some big runs, you may see them kind of adjust and adapt their scheme based on that. I'm sure they'll have a backup plan, but I think for the time being, going into the game, it's going to be status quo with bringing the pressure.
Yeah, I can see that. I can also see us kind of allowing a little bit of scrambling and stuff like that, knowing that we're going to lock it down once we get closer to the red zone. Like historically, we've done really the last 4 or 5 years, the kind of bend but don't break. Like if the scrambling quarterback's going to go all over us.
Yeah, and I don't know, guys, I don't know how much honestly Jordan Travis scrambles. I think he had a lot of attempts in the LSU game, which is probably that's definitely the one I watched the most. But against NC State, which was a 19-17 game, he had 7 carries. Now he had 108 yards on those 7, so that was a lot. But I think he broke a really big one in that game. But he's not a prolific runner. He has 28 attempts on the year, way fewer yards than DJU has. And I don't know that any of us would paint DJ as a running quarterback necessarily. We know he has that gear. We know we got to look out for it. And look, against Clemson, they're going to have to try everything. They're going to have to throw the kitchen sink at us. So I do trust, as you guys have mentioned, the physicality of our awesome linebacker core. I don't know. I think he's just going to have fits with that front seven the whole day. So I guess, Jarrett, to answer your question, I mean, I say play to what the offense gives you. Like while I would love to have us, going after him early and often, I don't know. I would actually more so like to see some of our back seven be put into conflict in the passing game and sort of see those guys develop some. Like for me now, it's all about get ready for winning Notre Dame, not messing up against FSU or Syracuse, and then just getting ready for the playoff generally. So I think whatever tees this defense up to get a little bit sharper, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add is that if he's has a reputation of kind of moving around and scrambling and stuff, it's all he needs is to add another 2 or 3 seconds of just going side to side and not being stopped to let the receivers break away just a little bit. And
sure.
So
the threat there definitely opens.
That's almost more frustrating. That's almost more frustrating in my opinion. Just like you can't quite get him, but he's not running for first downs, but he's just a little bit extra time.
Eric Dungy. It's Eric Dungy back in the day, right? For Syracuse.
I'm just
one thing I wanted to call out, I'm not worried about the big play because Clemson's defense, I'm going to read a David Hale data point from ESPN. Clemson's D has only allowed 4 explosive run plays all season, which is the lowest in the country. Our opponents are also averaging 54 yards per game with 1.9 yards per carry. Like it is an insane. That's second in the country, first among Power 5.
But who's the baller running back or offensive line that we've played so far this season? Who's the quarterback that can scramble? I mean, again, it's Jordan Travis is going to be better than all of those guys. But I still think we bring the pressure because, we're going to have Miles Murphy, Tyler Davis, Brian Bresee, KJ Henry, Xavier Thomas, Rook, all out there on the field.
Trey Williams
available. Yeah. Tell me those guys ain't gonna be itching to get back there after the quarterback. Like try to hold them back.
I think they're gonna get home. Like I don't think FSU's O-line is that capable. Yeah, he can scramble. Who's behind those guys you just mentioned? Barrett Carter, Trenton Simpson. Like feel pretty good about those guys. Yeah, Jeremiah Trotter. Mm-hmm. Keith McGuire, man, he looked pretty good in this game. Like I don't know.
Bentley getting in late.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good. I think FSU, whatever their team side point total is, I would flirt with the under on that. I don't know what Clemson's going to do offensively. I mean, we covered that spread this last weekend. I was telling people, can Clemson cover 21.5? I'm like, I will believe it when I see it. We saw it. Maybe we can't do that from now on. But
I think we can cover 3.5.
Yes, I do. That's a ridiculous.
Oh, there's your bet alert, free money alert. Clemson minus 3.5.
Yeah.
Getting our full defense back, by the way. Like, I don't know.
Is that like an inflation reward from Vegas?
Is that the number of points they expect for FSU to score, or?
Yeah. Did they leave out a 2 or 3? Not gonna be a 3. It's not gonna be a 30-point game. I could see it definitely being in the 20s for sure.
I mean, were there any kind of like parting highlights from this game? I mean, we mentioned XT.
I wanted to mention one play. One play, the one that Miles Murphy came around and grabbed Djokovic and then just let him go. Did it not definitely seem to you guys that Miles Murphy thought he had thrown the ball? Because it did look like he did like a pump fake, right? It did look like he threw the ball, and anymore, if you're these defensive guys, you cannot sneeze
rough the passer, right?
Without getting a penalty called against you.
So is that kind of, Ben, I don't recall that play, but is that kind of like last year in the ACC championship game where spacing on the Pitt quarterback's name, Kenny Pickett, faked a slide and then got up and ran for a touchdown? Like, is that the new that if you're a quarterback, like pump fake, the D tackle at the end has to drop you, then you can actually throw it.
Meanwhile, I saw a play in this game where the like a defensive end or somebody rushing DJ after he got a pass off came and hit him right in the face mask, right in the head. No flag from these ACC officials.
Yeah, frustrating.
Crazy. Very frustrating.
Holding call. Anybody? Can we see a holding call? Have we had a holding call all year?
I don't think so.
Like one. I think we've had like one back in Wake.
I mean, these guys are ridiculous. Like it's they're a laughing stock.
I think they just know that like they're gonna have to call holding all the time because the like 15 guys we just listed on the D line that
There's some egregious
they're gonna
stuff. It
have to hold
doesn't
them.
matter. It doesn't matter that they're that much better than these other guys. You don't level the playing field because of that.
Oh,
Like,
I'm not saying they should do that. I'm just, yeah.
but I think it was somebody, it might have been QT that mentioned that in the Notre Dame BYU game, the ACC officials called like 2 on the field penalties all game long.
Yeah.
They've been miserable. I mean, the past several years, and the holding calls are the most egregious of all of it, or the missed holding calls.
Just blame John Swafford wherever he's at.
Pretty dominant defensive performance, guys. I mean, 11 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 13 QB hurries. I mean, it felt like, I should go back and look at Jurkovic's attempts. There were 17 of those either resulted in a sack or a hurry. He dropped back to pass 40 times. So it's just a crazy havoc rate for the defensive line. Great to see. BC used to have like NFL caliber O lines. I don't think they do anymore. They got to focus on getting back there and recruiting. But yeah, I mean, awesome to see. Can't say enough good stuff about this defense. Bodes well getting these guys back healthy. I guess like in terms of what I'm looking for in this FSU game, like I'd love to see what Sheridan Jones brings to the table. I think he's, been on campus. He's flashed in past years a little bit, and he's a starting corner, and Lord knows we need help at that position. So if he can come in and, be this year's coordinator Tankersley, let's say, that'd be great. Guy who stuck with it in the program, kind of got in when he could, waited his turn, and now can come out late in his career and be the guy. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think I saw he's day to day too. Like we're hoping he comes back, but he could be next week as well. But yeah, I think this is his 3rd year, right? So, I mean, these older guys are going to start getting chewed up more and more by these younger guys.
No doubt. All right. Well, great victory for your now number 4 Clemson Tigers up at Chestnut Hill. Only one more road game, guys, this FSU game this weekend. After that, we do go to Notre Dame. I'm sorry, a road ACC game. We do go to Notre Dame. And then the rest of our games are at home, which is great, for fan base and everything else. Notre Dame's going to be fun on the road. Go down to Tallahassee this weekend. It's yet another night game, yet another showcase for Clemson on the national stage, which should be great. We've talked a little bit about this FSU matchup. Man, did they lose in embarrassing and kind of heartbreaking fashion for their team. All they had to do, honestly, they could have, I know their field goal kicker, place kicker is brutal and rough. So they were trying to, seal the game by throwing for a touchdown. Instead, they threw a pick and NC State held on. But I mean, you just can't throw a pick in that situation. Like it's worth trying to run your kicker out there to win it. Or just don't put the ball in harm's way and try to run the ball. So who knows? I mean, you could say like even still they're overachieving for this year, even with that tough loss and losing to Wake the week previous. Kind of a tough stretch for them, right? Wake, NC State, and then us back to back to back. And then I think they get Notre Dame next, maybe, if I'm not wrong. So kind of a brutal stretch for the Noles, but
no, they don't play Notre Dame this year.
Okay. Who's next on their schedule after us?
They've got a huge game against the bye week.
The bye. I think they won't lose that one.
Might as well be Notre Dame.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess just in terms of like Mike Norvell's rebuild, he's definitely used the transfer portal. I think we mentioned a couple of their guys who, have elevated that team somewhat. I think they've been able to reconstruct that offensive line, which was pretty piss poor at the end of the Jimbo era into Willie Taggart, now into the first few years of Norvell. So he's been working the portal. It's been working well for them. Sure would be cool if Clemson took a page from that notebook. But either way, I think Norvell is still waiting for that signature win. And I do not count LSU this year as a signature win. Clemson would be a great, trophy to put on their mantle. I think there's a lot of reasons why I'm not expecting that to happen. But again, these teams are talented, they're hungry. I'm sure they feel like they have a chip on their shoulder about the 2020 season. I hope that we do, because we should. That still leaves bad blood, I hope, in the team's mouth, coming down to Tallahassee for this one. So I don't know. Should be a fun matchup. I cannot believe the spread is only 3.5. That's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, Dabo doesn't forget, who he is, and he's a super happy-go-lucky guy, but he absolutely remembers all of those moments, and he comes back for them, I think. And I like that interception. I just looked it up. It was on 2nd and 8 at the North Carolina State 22. So it's like not even 3rd down or 4th down, just like 2nd and 8. Like,
yeah, do a screen pass, right? Like, you can't, likely not going to throw a pick in that situation. So
it's literally something I would do in Madden.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, that's our FSU preview. Pretty good stuff. No, this week, guys, week 7 coming up in college football. Crazy good slate in this one. Across the top 25 and really outside the top 25 too, in terms of ACC matchups. We can go through like the ranked unranked. Penn State goes to Michigan. Both of them are undefeated. Ben continues to claim Michigan is overrated, even though they're number 5 behind Clemson. I think Penn State represents definitely the best team that they're going to face thus far. I watched part of that Penn State game against Purdue the first week of the season, and they looked pretty awful. So this is probably going to be it's a noon game Eastern, probably going to be a pretty boring game at noon Eastern.
Yeah, I'm taking in this one Michigan -7, and I'm taking the over set at 52. I think Penn State is a fraud at number 10. Not very impressed with them. Their biggest win so far this season is, 41-12 at
Probably
Auburn.
Purdue. Oh yeah. I guess that was an impressive win at Auburn.
They beat Northwestern 17-7 at home.
Yeah. Other big, it seems like every conference has like a big, good on good matchup this weekend, except for the ACC. I mean, I guess you got NC State, Syracuse, they're both ranked, but that's for like 3rd place in the Atlantic probably. So, but out west here, USC plays Utah at 8:00 Eastern. It's at Utah. I think this could be a spot where USC could lose their first game potentially. So that'll be one to kind of keep an eye on. It's going to be kind of opposite Clemson, so we probably won't be watching too much of that game, but keep an eye on the score, maybe flip over at halftime, whatever. It's kind of like 30 minutes later, so it should be off. NC State, Syracuse, mentioned that. In the Big 12, I think the 2 teams that are the class of that conference this season play Oklahoma State at TCU. Probably take the over in this one, Ben. What do you think? It's 68.5. It's a little rich at 68.5.
Man, that's a shootout. TCU -4. I don't know. I had to look into both those teams more.
Yeah.
I mean, those are high scoring football teams. You may take the over on that one.
I love taking the over in Big 12 games. It's just fun. They're going to do it. They could get there by halftime. Like, I've seen it.
Hey, Brent Venables may be able to get a ranked win this year, despite how bad the season's gone for him, at least the last couple weeks. Playing at home against Kansas. Kansas,
their quarterback's out. Yeah.
Is likely out for this game.
True.
Wow. What a world where Oklahoma's premier win of the year is against ranked Kansas.
The line is still Oklahoma -9.
Wow.
I think that's probably most likely due to the quarterback being out.
Right.
Alabama, Tennessee. That's
Let's
the
talk
game to
about
watch.
That's
what do you guys
crazy
think?
game.
That is the game to watch.
It's controversial. I think I'm Bama till I see it.
Is Bryce Young coming back for this game?
That's true. Because he wasn't in the A&M game. He didn't play.
I think he's going to play.
Yeah, I think he'll probably play.
We won't know until game time, knowing Nick Saban.
It's so hard to tell. I mean, because Tennessee has had so many years where like they start promising and then they just completely fall apart. It's like, again, how good are some of the teams they've played? it's hard to say, but Bama has looked more vulnerable this year than they have in a long time. Just a lot of bad, dumb mistakes on the defense and penalties and just being undisciplined.
They don't have a stud receiver
So-
yet, apparently. I mean, that they don't have like an emerging guy, to be there. So,
Yeah.
but still, I just think like till Saban gets his teams up for big games.
And I don't know how any of the over-under stuff works, but I'm going to take the Vols at home.
That's a Neyland Stadium, man. That might be a good call there.
Yeah.
I mean, Bama's favored by 7.5. That's a pretty heavy line.
What does Young look like coming back?
Mm-hmm.
From injury?
Tennessee's defense is pretty whack, though. I mean, if you want to,
I mean, Bama's ain't much to write home about from what we've seen in a couple games this year.
Yeah, I just mean
they can score.
I think Bama can score.
I mean, Texas's backup quarterback almost, took him all the way.
What would that do? What would that do? Let's talk about if Bama does lose to Tennessee. Let's say they lose by like 7. How far do you think they'll fall? I think Tennessee replaces them at number 3.
Yeah.
They'll pass us.
Bama would have a quality loss and they'd move up to number 1.
They'll be at 4. They'll push us out. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I don't think they'd fall far. It's just kind of like
it depends on what everybody else does. I mean, between Michigan or Penn State, whichever team wins that game would jump Bama if Bama loses.
I know what you mean. I'd be inclined probably if Penn
State could win. I don't know. You could see Bama drop close to 10, depending on what else shakes out.
Depending on what else shakes out, but if they just lose straight up and nothing else crazy happens, then I think that they probably push us out unless we beat the crap out of FSU, and rankings would probably be like Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Michigan.
I mean, if USC beats a ranked Utah team on the road, I can see them surpassing Bama.
I'd put Bama behind us too in that scenario. I think USC moves up. I think Bama moves to 7. USC moves to like 6 or 5.
I'm looking at all the top.
Penn State, they'll pass us again.
I'm looking.
I was surprised they dropped 2 points.
I'm looking at all the teams in like the top 11. Like the top 11 teams are undefeated right now. If Tennessee beats Bama and everybody else wins, minus there's going to be the Michigan Penn State win. I still think all those 9 teams that remain undefeated would be ahead of Bama. I can see them dropping to 10th. Because they've all got ranked games this weekend.
I could see that, Ben, if Bama just looks outclassed. Like if they look outclassed and Tennessee just works them, I could definitely see going to 10. I think they would probably stay ahead of like Ole Miss.
Maybe Ole Miss.
Yeah. And like I guess Oklahoma State would have a quality win at TCU on the road. So they'd probably jump ahead of Bama.
Who does Ole Lane Kiffin have this week?
They have Auburn.
Auburn. Yeah. Maybe they don't jump them.
Yeah. I don't think that's an impressive win.
All right. Bama at 9. Bama at 9.
Yeah. 8 or 9.
Then when they win the next week against whoever they're playing, they'll be back up to 4.
Yeah. And it's like, what does that do for the SEC? So Tennessee beats Bama. They're right there. They're going to play Georgia later this year. Bama's there. They get a weak SEC West schedule the rest of the way. They're going to be in Atlanta playing the winner of that game. They might get a rematch chance. Obviously, if they lose that, they're out of the playoff. But
Bama's going to have an opportunity against potentially ranked Mississippi State team the week following the Tennessee game, and then at Ole Miss, who's a top 10, number 9 right now, plus
that's
potential SEC championship game. Although Tennessee runs the table there, then
Tennessee.
They're in the wrong. They're in the wrong division. So that would take Ole Miss to run the table. So if Alabama, wins that game, I think they can certainly afford a loss to Tennessee and still in the SEC championship game. Win that, they're back in the playoffs. So Bama can afford one loss for sure, and they can afford.
Here's the nightmare scenario: Tennessee beats Bama, Georgia beats Tennessee, Bama beats Georgia in the SEC title game. They're all one loss to each other.
Well, then it's just 4 SEC teams in the playoff.
Well, then I think it would still be because Georgia would have the tiebreaker and they're in the East with Tennessee. So it would probably still be Bama, Georgia, and the SEC championship game. Tennessee's out.
But then but Tennessee could have one loss, non-divisional champ. That happened to Bama one year. Auburn beat them in the Iron Bowl. Bama made the playoff. So anyway, yeah, Ben.
Tennessee has Alabama, UT Martin, Kentucky, and Georgia the next 4 weeks. That is not a fun schedule.
Yeah, I mean, if Bama loses to Tennessee, they're probably high likelihood to lose at least one other game.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it'll be interesting. That's gonna be a good one. That is on 12:30 West Coast, 3:30 Eastern on CBS. That's like their big marquee game of the week. We kind of touched on the other ones, but good distribution. You got that Big 12 against the SEC at the same time, along with the NC State Cuse. That CBS game usually drags on for like 4 hours. So, you can jump around a little bit. But Clemson, Florida State, 7:30 East Coast time, Saturday night at Doak. Cannot believe we're 3.5. Said that already. Insane.
They must have moved the decimals in the wrong place. Is it supposed to be minus 35?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's just so weird, right? Without an injury or something, knock on wood.
Yeah, we literally are getting more of our defense back and
right.
No major offensive injuries. Like if Cade was starting, I would expect, like if DJ went down and Cade was starting, I'd be like, yeah, minus 3.5 totally. We're on the road, blah, blah, blah. I think they just the decimals wrong. They have an intern running the
running the casinos. All right, fellas. Well, covered a lot of ground in this one. Halfway point of the season. I think, Jarrett, next time we chat, we should kind of dig into some of our season preview stuff. Grade ourselves.
Let's do it.
I think you called it the podcast midterm. Let's do it. Want to talk about predictions, talk about who we said would be impact players, kind of rookies of the year, like stuff like that. So
see if any of our big brain tinfoil hat stuff paid off. Still haven't seen much of Hunter Johnson, so I guess that might be a miss, but there's still 6 games left at least.
I'll go back and listen to the season preview.
Yeah, there you go.
First time.
Do it.
It's never too late.
Well, thank you for everyone for tuning in. Appreciate the listens. Appreciate those that have left reviews. If you haven't done so, please get over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter account as well. We are Clemson Pawcast all over the place. We're also recording video and posting these shows over at YouTube, youtube.com/Clemson Pawcast. That's our channel. You can sign up for alerts to be notified when our podcasts go live. Give us some feedback on that too. Go ahead, comment on the videos, whatever. We're figuring this stuff out. Shout out to Cody. He is our producer, editor, the guy that makes it happen from the video, putting that on the air. So we appreciate Cody going to long lengths to get that stuff done for us. It's good. Give Cody your feedback. What could be better? He likes self-improvement. That's what Cody's all about. So give us your feedback.
Yep.
So we're gonna be on TV this week?
We're on TV every week.
No, I mean the podcast on the YouTube.
On the tube.
Oh yeah, youtube.com/Clemson Pawcast.
.com.
Like,
don't forget
subscribe,
it's .com.
Click that bell. My God.
Indeed. One of these times, guys, we got to do a live stream, a live show. People can ask us questions live, comment, whatever. I think that'd be really fun.
100%.
Maybe we'll do that during the bye week.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again, everyone. And as always, go Tigers. There's your outtake, Ben.